Hello, 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 everybody. We are officially live. Welcome to our second mentor workshop of the fall semester. Thanks for being here, everybody. I'm so excited to get started. I'm so excited to get moving. We're going to get started in just 3 minutes. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for being a mentor. So excited to be working with you all. So excited to learn about how your first conversation has gone. If you met with your students so far, if not, totally okay, but definitely want to get started on that ASAP. So I'm going to update the live stream onto our website and we will get started shortly. Alrighty, we're going to get started in just a couple of minutes. But yeah, I hope everybody's having a good week so far. You know, it's really powerful, the power of perspective, you know. Somebody had asked me today how my day was going. I was like, you know what, I had some goods, or how my week was going. I was like, I had some ups, I had some downs. You know, some things were going well, some things, you know, weren't amazing, but overall it was, you know, it was leaning positive. And you know, unfortunately, he had told me that his daughter's best friend had unfortunately passed away in a car crash, and it made me get a lot of perspective because I was like, whoa, okay, that's pretty insane, and it made me realize, you know what, comparatively, I'm having a pretty great week. So a matter of perspective, I guess, is always powerful. By the way, thanks for everybody who's here. Introduce yourself in the chat section. We'd love to say hey. We'd love to see who you are. Awesome. Well, we're gonna get started in about 1 minute. I'm assuming that, you know, we're gonna have a lot of people jump in right as we get started. But introduce yourself in the chat. Would love to learn who's here. Would love to learn about yeah, I'd love to learn about your weeks. What's going good in your week? What's going, you know, not so great? What are things that are overall solid? You know, I'm a big fan of digging deeper into the how you're doing instead of just saying the fine, but actually like digging into it. I just think there's so much more to that. There are two big things that I'm like my big pet peeves. One is when I ask people how they're doing, if they just say fine, I'd like to know more. I want to know. I wouldn't ask if I didn't genuinely care. I know a lot of people do ask when they don't necessarily care. Hey, Carly, thanks for introducing yourself. But the other big thing that is my huge pet peeve is when I ask people how they're doing and they say busy. Oh my goodness gracious, that is like the worst thing in the world, because it communicates to the person you're speaking with that they're not worth your time. And although that you're not intentionally communicating that, it's so powerful and so impactful because people will see that and they're like, whoa, okay, they're busy. Then like, I don't want to waste their time. I don't want to take too much away from them. You know, I don't want to bother you. So I'm a big believer in not saying just fine when someone asks you how you're doing, as well as don't say that you're busy when somebody asks. Even if you are busy, how are you spending your time? Are you doing it intentionally? I think Kevin Hart did an interview and he was interviewed by like, I think Conan O'Brien or something. And Conan was like, man, Kevin, you're doing a TV show, we're doing a movie, commercials, you're doing a podcast, you're doing all these things. You must be a really busy guy. And Kevin's like, no, I'm not busy. I'm spending my time optimally. And I loved and I appreciated that. I thought it made a lot of sense. Anyways, introduce yourself in the chat room. We'd love to see who's here. Yeah, update me on how your week's been. Do you have anything good happen? Anything not so good? Just general even keel? I don't care. How was your week? Post in the chat. I'd love to learn about it. So let's dive into our workshop for this evening. We're going to cover a few key things. This workshop is going to be about 10 to 15 minutes. And the content, and obviously, you know, we'll have additional time at the end for Q&A. So if you got any questions, post them in the chat section as we go through. And if you got any questions at the end, post them there as well. Would love to hear from you. Would love to answer any questions. By now, you should have connected with your student. If not, please email support@ambition-in-motion.com and we can figure out your situation. There are scenarios where we have more mentors than we do students. Sometimes that just happens, and we do reshuffle. And so sometimes we'll pair a student later in the semester with the mentor. So it's great that you're there and available if you're not paired with the student, but we just try to do our best to make sure that we're able to just set everybody's expectations properly, because sometimes people sign up to be mentors and they, for whatever reason, have scheduling conflicts. And it's always great to have a mentor that's ready to go if a student isn't able to get in touch with their mentor. So I appreciate everything that you're doing, and I appreciate you just being a mentor. I'm so grateful the fact that you would be willing to be a mentor. It's very powerful on these students, and it really helps them out. So what are we going to cover today? We're going to cover a few key things. We're going to cover how to set proper expectations for the mentor relationship. We're going to talk about the best way to handle any issue with a student, like whether or not they didn't show up on time, or if you felt they didn't come off as prepared as you would like them to be, or they had noise in the background and you felt it was distracting, or they asked to reschedule on short notice and it was really frustrating because you worked your calendar around making this meeting work. Whatever it is, we're going to talk about how can we set those expectations, how can we best handle those issues, and then we're going to talk about how to help students with key issues they face on a regular basis, like finding balance and identifying a vision. So those are the key things that we're going to cover in this workshop today. Any questions about that? Any inquiries, any questions, any thoughts, any concerns, anything about anything that I laid out about for this workshop this evening? Hey, Serena, thanks for introducing yourself. Thanks for saying hey. So the first thing, and you'll notice this is a trend, I always like to start off with this, and that is the 3 keys to being successful as a mentor. I think you might have thought I was a crazy person if you attended our workshop last week, where I did all the crazy things about what it means to be successful as a mentor, but I am truly passionate about it. I truly believe that these things are so critical, and that is the 3 keys are owning your strategy, your story, and your state. So I don't care what's going on in your world. I don't care if you're tired, sad, depressed, mad, angry, anxious. We're going to focus on getting ourselves into a peak state for this workshop, but also practicing. So then when you are meeting with your student, you are in a peak state for meeting with them. So what I want you to do right now is I want you to stand up. And for the next 30 seconds, I want you to shake it out. I want you to shimmy it loose. I want you to kick your legs, kick it out, shake it loose, dance around. Get it going. I want you to scream at the top of your lungs on the count of 3. I want you to scream 1, 2, 3. Yeah, just let it out, let it loose, let it go. Oh man, that feels good. I know that sounds crazy, and you may not have done that, but I'm telling you, it is powerful. It gets endorphins running to your brain, gets your body into a state ready to take on the world. And you want to know what? If you're going into any meeting, any important meeting where you want to be on your A state, A game, do that. Pound your chest. Jump in the air, shake it out, scream at the top of your lungs. It will get your blood moving. It'll get your blood pumping. It will help you feel a whole lot better about yourself, about your state. Even if it's just temporary, it's going to make you feel better, because getting your blood moving is powerful to getting yourself in the right state. The second key is story. What is the story you tell yourself? You might be thinking to yourself, well, I don't have all the experience in the world, or this person is looking for this, and I don't know if I necessarily have the exact same answers for them that they may want to hear. What I'm here to tell you is that if you tell yourself that you're not going to be a good mentor, you're more likely than not going to manifest that outcome. Now, granted, you may not have all the experiences in the world, but fortunately in a mentor relationship, that's not what your student is looking for. Your student is looking for you to ask them questions, dig deeper, be curious. Ultimately, that is where the best mentorship is. The best mentors are not people to train you. I think I saw a quote from Simon Sinek earlier today that was saying that mentors are not people that go ahead in front of you and help pull you along. There's someone who steps with you side by side as you're working through a challenge and come up with new ways of thinking about problems and solutions. As a student's mentor, when it comes to that mentorship, they may not necessarily be looking for a specific piece of advice or a specific piece of guidance. More likely than not, they're just looking for great questions or looking for a new way of thinking about things. And that comes with great questions. So if you're thinking to yourself, oh man, am I capable of being a good mentor? I think the question you have to ask yourself is, am I capable of asking good questions? And the answer is, of course, we provide those questions. We provide meeting agendas. We've got workshops where we show you questions that you can ask to get to build a strong bond with your students. So there's no excuse for why not. So I want to strongly encourage you to tell yourself a story that you can be successful and that you will be successful in your mentor relationships because you know that you can and that you believe you can. The third key is the strategy. So the strategies are a variety of ways to be successful as a mentor. You could come up with, you could provide strategies like introducing your student to friends or colleagues of yours that you think might have some great insight or wisdom for them. It's not replacing you. It's helping them expand their network. It's helping them learn and connect with new people that might be able to help them as they pursue and perform and more or less progress through their career path. You could help them look at their resume. You could help them look at their cover letter. You could do a mock interview with them, help them practice the interview. You could do so many different things to help them as they work through their own professional goals, anxieties, challenges, things that they're going through. You can help them with that, especially in this time period that we're in right now. There's a lot of, COVID and being isolated and just being away from everybody creates a lot of mental health issues. I mean, just whether it be anxiety or depression. I mean, when we're isolated from people, it really can take a toll on people's bodies and their lives. And you being their mentor and being there for them can have a really, really powerful impact on their life and their output and just their feelings about what's going on in the world. So realize that you have a really, really, really incredible opportunity to make a positive impact on somebody's life. So those are the 3 keys to being successful in a mentor relationship: strategy, story, state. Any questions on that? I'll check the chat right now. What is up, Catherine? Thanks for introducing yourself. I love to engage with you all a little bit right now. I know like we've got a handful of people watching right now, but I'd love to learn, what was the highlight of your week? What has been the highlight of your week so far? Post in the comment section. I'd love to learn anything positive. It could be, you know what, I went and when I brewed my coffee this morning, it was incredible. It just tasted fantastic. Maybe that's your win of the week. Maybe that's your highlight. Maybe you had a great dinner. Maybe you cooked an incredible meal or you went out to an incredible dinner. Maybe I know I did this because I had a friend who invited me to this, but last night they invited me to the screening of James Bond. It was awesome. Highlight of my week. That was fantastic. Really enjoyed it. I loved that movie. I thought it was really great. But what's the highlight of your week? Post in the comments section. Share anything. I love to learn about it. Cool. Thanks for sharing, everybody. So let's dive into how to set proper expectations for your mentor relationship. So the first call should be all about your student. I really want to convey that. The first conversation is not about your student interviewing you and you telling your life story. And I want to be very clear about that, because ultimately we want to make sure that we are engaging with our student and what's going on in their world. It should be like you asking them 20 questions about what's going on in their world. Even if you feel like you've asked every question in the world, keep asking more questions. Questions are where the power comes in. Curiosity is where really strong bonds come from. I really want to encourage you to make that first conversation all about the student. Learn what is going on in their world. Ask them questions. One thing I'm a really big fan of is asking your student to share their story starting with kindergarten. And I know that's a strange question to ask, because so often when we think about our life, we think about our professional life starting at age 20 something, and then we worked into this, and then we worked into that. We skip the whole child and upbringing part. And I think that's a really critical component to our life. And it shows that we really care about them as a person on a deeper level than just what they're working towards. So I love to ask the question, starting with kindergarten, tell me your life story. You might learn a lot of things about your student. You might learn that they moved while they were growing up, or you might learn that they were in band or in a sport or were doing something fun. And it gives context as to why they got to where they're at today. We so often skip and assume. We also often think like, oh, you want to become an accountant because of this reason. Oh, that makes sense. It's a well-paid job and it's pretty consistent and it's very secure. You might assume that, but you may end up not realizing that when they were in high school, they participated in this treasury opportunity and they loved it. And maybe that's why they wanted to be an accountant. I don't know. There are so many context clues to the stories that we so often leave out. And I think it's really powerful. We can ask our student about how they got here, starting with kindergarten. The next question I like to ask after that is, how can I help you get to your dream job? Essentially, really, the question is, what is your dream job? So after I ask, share your story starting with kindergarten, I like to ask, what is your dream job? And then the last question I like to ask is, where would you like to be in 5 years? And I know that sounds like a crazy set of questions to ask, but what it does is it really helps you get to know your student on a much deeper, more intentional level. You'll be able to understand, okay, this is what their dream job is. This is where they want to be in 5 years. Maybe you might be thinking to yourself, that's not realistic. And if that's the case, that's okay. But let's discuss that. Let's learn why you think that's unrealistic. Let's learn why it's their dream job. Or maybe you might think to them yourself that this person's selling themselves short, that they can achieve so much more than what their dream job is. Clarify why that's their dream job. Ask them more questions. Learn about why they set that as their dream job. And sometimes as a mentor, you can see something in them that they don't quite see in themselves. And so sometimes they have an idea of what their dream job is. Maybe it might help to reframe it as, what's your dream outcome? Where would you like to be? Maybe you don't even think about the job itself, but what is the outcome you would like to achieve for your life and your work and how that all fits together? That's a great way of asking that question and getting you to better understand your student. So once you learn this information, ask them what they believe is the one thing that they can work on between now and your next call that will help them get closer to accomplishing their goals. I know it may sound crazy because they might think 5 years or my dream job, that's way off from right now. But you want to know what? All goals start with one place. I think the old adage is the way that you eat an elephant is one bite at a time. The point I'm making in all of this is that when it comes to goals and big, hairy, audacious goals, it's about setting small steps that we can achieve on a regular basis. I'm a big fan of a book called Atomic Habits. And really the whole kind of message behind it is, if we can identify what are some small things, small wins that we can hit on a regular daily basis, we will be able to make big strides towards our outcomes versus doing a massive, massive marathon that might totally drain us. So small steps lead to big outcomes as long as we're consistent on a regular basis. I'm a big fan of essentially positive routines. Remember what that thing is and ask for a status update or how they accomplish that task. So in your next conversation, take notes. So in this conversation, your first conversation with your student, take notes about what's going on, what your student is sharing with you, and then follow up on that. In your follow-up conversation, say, hey, how did that go? Were you able to achieve that? Were you able to not achieve that? I mean, if they didn't, that's okay. Don't judge them. Just be like, hey, I totally understand. It's a tough task. What might be a more realistic goal for your next conversation? What might be a more realistic thing that you can work towards that's maybe less strenuous or maybe less a smaller bite, or that's something that is more realistic in your mind? These are questions that you can ask your student so that they can get into some form of positive habit towards achieving their goals that they've set for themselves. So adjacent to setting proper actually, before we dive into that, does anybody have any questions? Ooh, Carly, thanks for sharing what your highlight of the week was. My project that I had stop work order earlier this year came back. Fantastic. Astros in the playoffs. Very cool. Thanks for sharing. Student appreciation week for your campus. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, everybody. So let's talk about handling issues. We might have a scenario where we have a student who shows up late, or maybe you felt like they didn't come prepared, or they had noise in the background and it was distracting and you didn't actually know how to broach that subject, or if they rescheduled on short notice or at the very last second, or anything that frustrated you. The first step, don't get mad at them. I know that may sound counterintuitive. Don't get mad at them. You might think to yourself, well, how the heck are they supposed to learn a lesson if I don't get mad at them? Well, I'll tell you what, if you get mad at them and they feel like you're judging them or that they can't build a connection with you, they're not going to have follow-up conversations with you and they're going to rebuff you. It's not going to be helpful. So the first step, not get mad at them or tell them what they did was wrong. That is the easiest way to lose the mentorship and to lose the relationship overall. So let's say you're meeting with your student and they showed up late. Go through the call like as if nothing happened. Take time to listen to them, ask questions, be really empathetic, be really engaged during the conversation, even if what they did really frustrated you. By the end of the call, you say this: I really enjoyed this first call. Did you? They'll probably say yes. Then you say, I feel like I can offer you a lot as your mentor, but for our future conversations, there are some things that I would like from you first. First, if we say that we're going to start at 10, then we start at 10. Can I count on you to be on time for our next meeting? Or hey, if we're setting up time for these mentor conversations and my expectation is that we don't have distractions in the background and I felt like I could barely hear you because you've got music going on in the background. Can we have our meetings without music in the background next time? Or if we got a scenario where the student didn't come prepared with questions, you can say, hey, for future meetings, I would love if you had a handful of questions that you like to ask me prepared before we have the conversation. Would that be something that would be reasonable for you? By building that rapport, by building that bond, by earning that trust first, you are essentially earning credibility in their mind. By asking them questions, by taking a keen interest, by just being a genuinely person that's there for them and cares for them, you are ultimately helping them with the things that they're working towards. And by caring about them, they will naturally care about you. And if you say, hey, my expectation moving forward would be this, is this all right with you? That one, it shows them that you're not demanding it, shows that they've got an option for it. But two, it also conveys to them and helps them learn that this is what your expectation is. And even if this is, you think to yourself, like, everybody should know this expectation, keep in mind, these are students. Sometimes these expectations are not obvious to everybody. So I just want to very clearly convey how important it is to listen, act really positively, even if you have an issue that arises during the conversation. And then once you've earned that trust, you then set your expectations and you ask whether or not they think that's fair. Typically, they're going to say yes. And from then on out, they're typically going to be great. By waiting to set the expectation to build rapport, you are significantly more likely to have a strong relationship with the student than if you got mad at them at the beginning of the conversation. So any questions on that or handling issues? Cool, awesome. Let's dive into how to find balance and vision within the relationship. I'm going to start with vision first. I've got a set of 5 questions that I love to ask people, that I love to ask students to help that student identify a vision. This is a really strong nugget of suggested questions, so take notes. I think these are really helpful for building a strong bond with a student. So the first question is this: if this situation were to work out in the best way possible, what would it be? That's a great question to ask a student because it helps them clarify what is the best possible outcome that I would like to achieve from whatever situation I'm in right now, whether that mean I'm studying for finals, or I'm applying for an internship, or I'm looking to get a job, or I'm looking to get an apprenticeship, or I'm trying to get into a master's program or a PhD program, whatever I'm motivated by. If this situation were to work out in the best way possible, what would that be? That is a great way to help a student clarify what they're trying to work towards and accomplish. The second question I like to ask is, what is one thing that seems impossible, but with a little luck and a lot of work, just might be within reach? This is a great question to ask because it helps them dream big. It helps them to have that big, hairy, audacious goal. It helps them clarify what are the things that they're trying to do. By the way, this is recorded, so if you want to watch this at a later date, you can always rewatch the recording of this. But the question is, what is one thing that seems impossible, but with a little luck and a lot of work, just might be within reach? The third question I like to ask to help a student clarify their vision is, what will you commit to doing today, this week, and this month? That's back to that habits component. That's something where they can start setting their own guidelines, goalposts, things that they're trying to accomplish on a regular basis, so then they can go about getting to their goal faster, because it's not about doing a massive marathon in a short period of time. It's about taking small bites every single day to getting to where you want to be professionally. The fourth question I like to ask is, who do you know that thinks big? This is a great question to ask because it gives them a paradigm for success. See, so often we accept not hitting our goals because we think to ourselves, well, I can't really think of anybody else who's done anything successful like this before, so I'm probably okay with not achieving my goals. That's not great. If you can say, hey, who do you know that thinks big? That gets them thinking, you know what, I know this person and they think big and they actually go about achieving their goals. I could be like that person. That's a great person to always refer back to. So if you're ever talking to your student, they don't hit their goals, you can always say, hey, what would Jenny do? You mentioned that Jenny's someone that you know that thinks big. What would Jenny do in this scenario? How would she recover from a scenario like this? Now, the fifth question I like to ask is, what in your life keeps you thinking small? This is a great way to have almost a reality check. Sometimes we've got friends that are just negative people, and we have been friends with them for such a long time that we don't realize how negative they are. We realize that they're negative, but we still stay with them because we want to be there for them. But ultimately, you may have some people in your life that keeps you thinking small, and we need to minimize their impact on our life. And by asking the student this question, it helps them really clarify, like, who are the people I want to spend more time with? Who are the people that I need to spend less time with? So those are great questions to ask to help a student with vision. In terms of balance, I've got 7 questions that I really like to ask to help a student just balance their life out and get just more balance in general within their life. So 1, what do you want to say yes to in your life? This is a great question to ask because it helps them identify what are the things that I want to see happen more of and more frequently in my life. The second thing is, what do I need to say no to? These are things that pull us away from what we're trying to accomplish. If your student tells you that they're frazzled or off center, or if they're just helter skelter, or just they feel like they're not in a great position or scenario, oftentimes they're saying yes to things that are not serving them. So by asking, what do you need to say no to, you're helping them clarify, you know what, there are things in my life that I really do need to say no to, and I need to just bite the bullet and get going on that. 3, when do you feel pulled off center? This is a great question to ask. So this can help them clarify what are the things that they need to say no to, because ultimately we may end up realizing I feel pulled off center when I've got a lot of exams coming up and I have procrastinated. Okay, what's causing you to procrastinate? Well, I've got some friends that always want to hang out because, you know, we want to make sure that we have a good time for our college years. And yeah, I realized that when it comes to my exam weeks, I feel really stressed out because I have so many exams that need to be studied for. So the answer might be, okay, well, maybe I spend less time going out and hanging out with friends and maybe spend a little more time studying on a regular basis every single day. So then I'm not stressed out because I procrastinated. I'll be already prepared for that exam. The fourth question is, what contributes to this feeling? This is just another way to elaborate on what is going on for helping a student figure out what's pulling them off center. The fifth question I like to ask is, when do you feel most grounded in life? This is a great question to ask because this helps your student understand more about themselves, of like, you know, these are the things that give me my bliss moments, my zen moments, my moments where I'm like, I feel totally grounded. This helps them realize the things that they want to have more of in their life. So leads to our sixth question: what in your life takes away from what might be possible for you? This is a great question to ask because it helps your student clarify, like, okay, yeah, by spending all this time doing this thing, I am taking away my opportunity to do that thing. And is that a trade that I want to make? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, I don't know. But by asking them what takes away from what might be possible for you, it might help them clarify the things that they may need to make a change on. And the seventh question I like to ask is, what in your life adds to who you are? It's a great question to ask because it's very much a question about identity. And ultimately, when it comes to balance, it's almost always an identity crisis. It's always like, okay, I am choosing to spend my time in this way because, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I need to be this person. But then when you ask them when your life adds to who you are, and you realize, like, that's not the person I want to be, that's not the person I am. Well, shoot, that's an opportunity to realize I need some growth. I need to like eradicate some people or some things in my life, and I need to add more of these things in my life because they fill my cup versus drain my cup. Anyways, those are some great questions to ask to help your student identify and set a vision as well as gain balance. By the way, these are great questions to ask for anybody to set a vision or gain balance. So if you've got a friend, family member, colleague who's struggling in these areas, use these questions. They're super helpful. And if you ask them, you're going to come off as a really caring friend because you're genuinely being inquisitive about what's going on in their life. So anyways, those are the key components of our workshop this evening. That's all really I've got for you today. Do y'all have any questions, any tips, any suggestions, any feedback, anything that you'd like to share? Awesome. Well, everybody, thank you all for being here. This has been a wonderful workshop. Good luck with your next mentor meeting. If you've got any questions about anything at all, please email Emily at, essentially Emily, my colleague Emily. Her email is support, S-U-P-P-O-R-T, at ambition-in-motion.com. I think you probably already interact with her multiple times through her email, but that's it for any future interactions or questions. Thanks for being here this evening. Have a wonderful rest of your night.